Well, welcome all. We are thrilled to have you for our Homer and Hyde Park information session. And we are going to be talking over the course of the next hour about this truly special opportunity to be in class with one of the world's great professors, David Ray, and to explore a truly phenomenal text, the Iliad, with other peers who share your deep curiosity and love of humanistic inquiry. My name is Seth Green, and I'm going to be going over the program origins, and I'll talk a little bit about why the University of Chicago Graham School is a part of this. And then we'll turn it over to David, who will give you a glimpse into this seminar. And then we'll turn it over to Tim, who directs our Master of Liberal Arts, which is the program that is the sponsor of this seminar week. And he'll talk about the logistics. And then we do have a lot of time set up for Q&A. So let me just start with a little bit of background on the Graham School. What you see on the screen are the different opportunities to engage through our school in the lifelong liberal arts. And we have another wing of the school that is kind of focused on discernment of next chapters. But this is our discovery wing. And what you see here is that we have a Master of Liberal Arts that is among the most respected and rigorous in the world. We have a great books program called the Basic Program, where you can look across the Western canon and then go beyond it now into the Asian and other canons. We have open enrollment where you can take on an average quarter more than 50 classes across all the disciplines of the university. And then we have travel study and annual programs. And we go to Oxford and Greece. And in the upcoming year, we'll also visit Ireland, Japan, Germany, and beyond. And as we've become a more global school, one of the things we've realized is that travel need not always be to a foreign destination, that for many of our students, spending time in the incredible environment of Hyde Park and the really extraordinary and unique place that is the University of Chicago is its own potential travel destination. And so that led us to this question of how can our students engage with and learn in our distinctive intellectual community in Hyde Park, and how can we treat Hyde Park like we treat Oxford and others as this really special place to study abroad in and to deeply engage in the intellectual inquiry on campus. And that led us to the notion of a residential seminar here. And we have had extraordinary people like David, who's taught in it before, teach in that program to great effect. And so the model is that it is a week-long immersion in one of the world's great universities, a place that you're looking at on your screen that sits right outside here and that is this gorgeous today. And it's a place where big ideas are born that change the world. And it's a place where inquiry is deep and where exchange is open and where being part of this intellectual culture for a week really does change the way that you're able to engage with texts like the Iliad. We have had a number of different residential seminars in recent years. We've had them on humanistic inquiry, on foundations of ethical thought. We had one on 1970s American literature and inequality, and one on leadership from Machiavelli to Dr. King. And I will say we've received really overwhelmingly positive feedback. The surveys are incredibly affirming of the model. And I'll just read here two quotes that have been put on our surveys in recent years that speak to the unique opportunity. As an adult, I have attended some of our nation's finest universities, from Harvard to Case Western Reserve to the Ohio State University and others. I don't recall feeling as stimulated to question, explore, and learn in many years. This experience changed me. I am expanded, I am more knowledgeable, I am more open, I have been exposed to more possibilities, and I believe in more possibilities. We are, in this particular residential seminar, truly fortunate because we have one of the great professors of our university, a classics professor, David Ray, who's going to be leading it. He is someone who can really deeply navigate the depths of Homer's epic because he has been studying this work and bringing students into discussion with these texts for many decades. And he is someone who will not just bring you into the text, he will also bring you across the campus. And so one of the very special aspects of this is that you're going to be examining responses to and transformations of Homer's classics. And you're going to look at painting, cinema, and other arts. So you'll be well beyond the page. You'll also get to visit one of the most renowned Homer collections in the world at our university's Regenstein Library. You'll be able to explore Homer's world through a class trip to the Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures on campus. And then you'll be engaged in a lot of meals together, community building, and experiences. And so with that, I'm going to take down my screen and I'm going to spotlight the reason that you're really here, which is David Ray, and to hear from him about the course. And David, as I turn it over to you, I just want to thank you for teaching this. We are so excited and grateful for another opportunity to engage with your very special approach to transformative education.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Seth. And I'm not at all worried about living up to the very kind words that you said, because I know that I don't live up to that. However, what I do know is that teaching Homer, reading Homer with students really everywhere in their life journey, continues to be a nourishing and enriching thing. This is my second year offering a summer seminar on Homer. I'll get to that in a moment and talk about what I will do and what we will do together during the summer. But just a little bit more about me. So I teach in classics and comparative literature. I've started out as a classicist working in Roman poetry. And I'm increasingly interested in things like the intersection of literature and philosophy. And these days I'm spending probably more time than I ought to be doing studying classical Chinese. That's in the comparative literature area of what I do. So let's see if this is working. There we go. So this is another collaboration that I co-edited with my wonderful colleague Shadi Barch, and this came out of actually a conference that happened at the University on Seneca and the Self. And then this volume, called Homer in Print, was a celebration of the very special gift that the university received from Michael Lang, which is the premier collection of Homer books, including first editions and including really beautiful exemplars of just about every major edition, of Homer's texts, not just the original Greek, but major translations as well. And that's one of the things that we'll talk about and that we'll learn about, is the very long tradition of Homer's reception and transmission, which in some ways you could say is a way of tracing the history of Greco-Roman and European, and in some ways world culture and civilization. I might also mention, I might plug my upcoming course next year in the Master of Liberal Arts program on the ancient Chinese philosopher Mencius, or Mengzi, in the tradition of Confucius, and the ancient Greco-Roman and former slave Epictetus, a Stoic teacher who lived before Marcus Aurelius. So we'll be exploring those two texts together. I did a similar course this past year on Aristotle and Confucius, and this is a model that I increasingly find to be powerful and exhilarating. But on to this course that just as Homeric formulas and phrases have multiple forms, the title of our course is sort of toggling between an epic week with Homer and Homer in Hyde Park. I like both of them, and so we'll just call it a course on the Iliad, a seminar on the Iliad. The things we'll talk about will include origins and transmissions, historical and cultural contexts, though this certainly isn't, it's not a sort of this was Homer's world kind of seminar. The main focus is a reading and discussion of the 24 books of Homer's Iliad, and every day we will also be taking in various ways transformations and adaptations of Homeric epic in the arts, especially music, painting, and cinema. Okay, so who or what are we talking about when we name Homer? Here is this remarkable 1827 Ingres, very academic, very classicizing portrait of Homer being divinized, the apotheosis of Homer, and surrounded by writers and scholars. You can see Dante down there on the left, and you can see Homer's blindness. You can see him being crowned, and this it's an articulation of the suggestion that Homer stands at the head of ancient and modern European literature and artistic tradition, both in the sense of being at the spring of a kind of fountain, but also in this sense, that by the 1800s, a lot of people thought that this was an absurd thing to say, but to say that Homer stood at the head, in the sense of standing at the summit of culture and tradition. An interesting question is, when we say Homer, are we naming some person or are we naming some tradition? There's every reason to think that that the poems that we have that are called the works of Homer took generations and indeed centuries of tradition, of oral poets reciting and learning and transmitting a tradition. And so what we have is the result of that long tradition, and then also the poems being transmitted in writing. But here's an example from the works attributed to Homer of a description of Homer himself as a blind man who lives in rugged Chios, the Greek island, and all of his songs will be the best forever. So there's a kind of the Homeric poems promoting Homer. And all of the depictions that we have, the visual depictions that we have of Homer, are simply imaginative extrapolations from those descriptions. All kinds of paintings that you can see of Homer being led by a boy or a dog by his side or being crowned and so on. These are all part of the tradition of who or what Homer is. So to recap some of the elements of the seminar that Seth has already mentioned, we'll make a trip to the Special Collections Research Center at the Regenstein Library, and we will commune with this astonishing collection like no other in the world, and we'll see some of the early modern and later really remarkable editions of the original and also translations of Homer's text. This picture shows the first page of Alexander Pope's poetic translation of the Iliad, which is a real watershed, a real masterpiece of literary translation. And the other trip that we will make is to ISAC, the Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures, and there we will study not so much a certain archaic Greek culture or historical moment that would have been the setting of the Iliad, but rather much more broadly the ancient Mediterranean and Near Eastern world. Pardon me, there are noises outside the window. I don't know if you can hear the train going by where I am. But Assyrian artifacts and Egyptian artifacts and artifacts from elsewhere in the ancient Mediterranean. In both of these visits, by the way, we will be guided by specialists, both here at ISAC and then also at the library. This is, we'll go down to the basement of ISAC and we will see this really remarkable Egyptian papyrus, which is one of the most ancient fragments of the actual text of the Iliad. The main thing that we'll do in this course, as I've said, is that we will read and discuss Homer's Iliad, this astonishing epic poem set in the 10th and final year of the Trojan War, this great anti-war poem, and we will read it in the translation of Caroline Alexander. There are many wonderful translations, and I've taught many different ones, and I'm very excited about teaching this particular translation. There are many wonderful ones. Emily Wilson's, for example, is marvelous. I'm excited about Caroline Alexander's translation because of the way that it allows us to get close to the fine-grained, formulaic quality of of Homer's verse. Very beautiful translation, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I'm looking forward to it. So, a very important thing to do in talking about the Iliad, I have come to believe over the years, is to spoil it. That is to say, to retell the story, because the Iliad's punch comes at the end, and there are so many bloody battle books in between that it's possible sort of to get tossed into the end of the poem and in a way miss the point, because this is a poem about compassion and empathy and the thought that the fact of our shared mortality gives us a reason to be kind to our enemies, even to our enemies. I'll come back to that, but I'm going to do this thing that nobody should ever try to do, and that is to recap the Iliad in maybe 5 or fewer minutes. So here's what happens in the Iliad. Chryses, a priest of Apollo, comes to Agamemnon, king and leader of the Greek army, with a rich ransom of gold. He is begging for the return of his daughter, who has been taken captive when their city was taken, and was Agamemnon's war prize. Agamemnon refuses and cruelly sends the old man away. The old man is, of course, the priest of Apollo. He prays to Apollo, and Apollo punishes Agamemnon by shooting arrows of plague upon the Greeks. The arrows of Apollo are, in this way of thinking, that they are a figuration of death by the plague virus that attacks first the animals and then the people. When a prophet reveals to the Greeks the cause of the plague, namely Agamemnon's refusal, he realizes, the king does, that he must give Chryseis back to her father Chryses, but he insists that the Greeks must give him another human prize to keep his honor intact as their king. I'm sure you've heard of the importance of honor as a kind of overarching value in Greek warrior culture. And part of what this poem does is hold up this value of honor. And when we say honor, I'm not talking about the honor inside that makes a person honorable. We're talking about social honor, right? That is a person's standing, that is assigned by the community. And for the warriors, it is the be-all and end-all. And Achilles lives a life in which he comes to question the primacy of honor in a way that nobody has access to in this archaic world. So Achilles, in this moment, when Agamemnon is saying, "Gentlemen, you've got to give me another prize because I have to give mine back to Apollo's priest," Achilles points out to Agamemnon that this would be overstepping his royal power to take another warrior's prize, and Agamemnon's response is, "Well, then I'll take your prize, Achilles." And so Agamemnon takes Achilles' war prize, Briseis, whom we later learn that Achilles may have intended to marry after the war, and live with her as the king and the queen of Achilles' home island of Phthia. This is a beautiful Roman image from Pompeii showing that scene. So, some 700 years perhaps after the time that the Iliad came together, right? The scene was being depicted in the walls of homes in Pompeii. Now bereft of Briseis and dishonored by Agamemnon, Achilles retaliates by withdrawing from the battle, remaining in his tent, and he leaves the Greeks to die at the hands of the Trojans as the tide of battle turns. Next, Achilles' beloved companion Patroclus takes pity on the Greeks, and he tries to persuade Achilles to return to the battle. Achilles says no, and Patroclus decides, with Achilles' permission, to put on the armor of Achilles and to enter the battle himself. He does this, and he meets death at the hands of Hector, the prince and great warrior of Troy. Achilles, wild with grief and rage at Patroclus' death, enters the battle, fights, and kills Hector. Achilles attaches Hector's body to his chariot and drags it around the walls of the city of Troy day after day. And then he returns to the beach to grieve for Patroclus. Here in this astonishing, this breathtaking painting by Tiepolo, Achilles is consoled by his mother, the sea goddess Thetis, So Achilles does this day after day. He even, conducts the funeral of Patroclus after Patroclus's ghost appears to him in a dream, and nothing breaks Achilles' grief. He's stuck toggling between vengeful rage and grief that makes him want to roll in the dirt, to return to the place where his beloved friend has gone, namely returned to the earth. So he's quite stuck. The poem then ends as it began, with a father coming to ransom his child. This time it's Hector's father, Priam, king of Troy, the old man, coming to beg Achilles to release Hector's body for burial. Priam's age and grief remind Achilles of his own father, whom he knows he will never see alive, because he knows that he will die at Troy. Achilles realizes that the shared inevitability of death gives him a reason to respond to his enemy's father's grief with empathy, with compassion. The Homeric poems call it pity, but pity is a strange word, so I prefer to say empathy or compassion. The two men weep together and marvel at each other's beauty. Thanks to Achilles' decision to feel compassion for his enemy, King Priam returns to Troy with the body of his son Hector, and the poem ends with the funeral of Hector, tamer of horses, prince of Troy, lamented by his mother Hecuba, his sister-in-law Helen, and his widow Andromache. So that's one through line of the story that happens in 24 books of this poem, and there are many other through lines that we will trace. One other thing that we will do that I'm very excited about, I'm excited about this because I started doing it with the text of Confucius in the MLA course that I taught this year. It turns out that now, thanks to search engines, you don't have to know any of an ancient language in order to do some very interesting sleuthing and discovering on your own. So probably on Friday morning, probably on the last day, we will spend some time with this astonishing website called the Chicago Homer that comes out of Northwestern, and it allows you to click on any word or any phrase, more importantly, that appears in the poem, and see every instance of it in the poem and compare it to other instances. And really astonishing and surprising things come about when you do this. So we'll do that and gain a new kind of familiarity with the text of the poem in Greek. It's something that people are always curious about, right? Because there is this mystique of the language of Homer. How many times people have asked me, well, what's it like to read Homer in Greek? And that's a hard question to answer. I sort of need to know more about the person, don't I? I need to know, like, well, what's your experience? Does your experience include different languages? Do you speak a different language now from a language that you spoke earlier in your life? What do you think, what do you think the difference between one language and another might amount to? But Homer's Greek has a very special kind of mystique, and it turns out that you can actually enter into far more of the structure, the texture of the language, thanks to elements, thanks to instruments like this than could have been done 20 years ago. The seminar will also include studying, as I've said, transformations and adaptations of Homeric epic in visual art, along with painting. We will also have the night that we have a dinner. There will be a performance, a live performance by this remarkable musician, Joe Goodkin, who for years now has been doing a series of performances with titles like The Blues of Achilles. Really remarkable stuff. So there will be a performance of that, and then a Q&A with him. There we'll also do a screening, I think, of this sword and sandal Robert Wise 1956 film called Helen of Troy. So to recap, what this seminar will look like. This week-long seminar, we will read and discuss the 24 books of Homer's Iliad. in Caroline Alexander's translation. We will visit ancient artifacts and books at the Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures and the Regenstein Library Special Collections, and we will explore the long tradition of Homer's reception in visual arts, music, and cinema. And we'll do all of this in conversation with each other. One thing I'm not is a lecturer. I hope this is the most that I will natter on without being in conversation with you, during the time of our interaction. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn things back over to, I'm not sure who, maybe Seth, maybe someone else.
Thank you so much, David. That was a spectacular glimpse into the course. And I actually am now going to turn it over to Tim Murphy, our director of the MLA, who can talk through the logistics. Tim?
Well, good evening, everyone. For the logistics of the week, the slide here is on housing accommodations. But before I get to that, I should just say that other aspects of the week are we're being class for 5 days. There'll be a morning session and an afternoon session, Monday through Friday. Most students will arrive to campus the evening before class starts on Sunday, and we'll arrange for a short campus walking tour, in addition to a group dinner at a local Hyde Park restaurant. And throughout the week, we'll cater lunch into the classroom 1 or 2 days and have a guest lecturer come in and talk about some aspect of the University of Chicago. For accommodations, the hotel that we recommend staying at is called The Study. It's conveniently located right here on campus, just south of the main quad where the class will be. It's about a 5-minute walk to the classroom. And upon registering for the course, our staff will be in touch with a discount code for those who want to stay at the study to get a reduced rate. But there's no obligation to stay at the study, so we'll have some Chicagoland area students who are welcome to commute daily to campus. Or if people are coming in from out of town and want to stay somewhere else in the city, they're welcome to do that. And we'll also be in touch with logistics on parking and tips to find convenient parking close to campus. If the study is not your choice, there's another hotel in Hyde Park called the Sophie, located maybe about a 15-minute walk from campus on 53rd Street. But accommodations are left up to the students themselves. Our office is happy to be a resource in figuring out where you want to stay, but accommodations are up to the students' discretion. In terms of enrollment and tuition, by virtue of finding your way into the room, I think everyone has found our webpage for this, but I'll throw it in the chat here all the same, where you can find the link to register for this incredible opportunity. Tuition for the course you see on the screen here, $24.95. That's the non-credit rate. So if you are a current MLA student and you want to take this course for credit, we'll enroll you. Callie or I will enroll you just like we do for any other MLA course, and we could discuss that via email or the phone. Get in touch with us to facilitate that. There may be 1 or 2 students that are thinking about applying to the MLA to start in the autumn. And this course is, of course, going to run in August, so before the autumn quarter starts. But if you're in that boat, please do get in touch with our office, because we can arrange for you to take the course in August and retroactively give you course credit to count toward the MLA degree. We do have scholarships available if anyone is in need of partial financial assistance. And same message there as my others, get in touch with our office. In fact, I'll put my email here in the chat. And all this information will also be in a follow-up email that we send the registrants for this evening. One important note here is that enrollment is rolling for this course. We're going to cap the registrations at 18 students to facilitate sort of the intimate Socratic seminar that we're aiming for here. We're currently just a little over halfway toward that cap, so you're encouraged to enroll soon while spots are still open. A few hours ago, we had a conversation with the systems team that manages the registration page, and we're going to open a wait list tomorrow. But if you try to register tonight and you just see that it's the course is closed, try again in the morning, because you'll be able to put yourself on the wait list if the registration fills up this evening. I think that is the end of the accommodations, logistics, and enrollment for the course. So Are we turning it back to Seth for a Q&A now?
Yeah, so let me first and foremost encourage anyone who has questions to please put them in the chat. We've gotten a couple from you spontaneously, and we can also have you raise your hand. And so, Elizabeth, let's start with a real person. I feel like that's more exciting. I have invited you to unmute, and let's hear your question directly.
Unmute.
There we go.
Unmute.
Perfect. Go for it.
Um, Dean Green,
Great.
could you please address what's going on with, uh, President Trump and, like what's going on with the university? Are we in trouble? Is our university in trouble? And I would like you to address that, please.
Sure. So the university has put out several general messages by the president that have talked about our commitment to our enduring values, and those continue in the current moment, and we take them very seriously. And he also wrote very personally about his own experience as someone who is an immigrant, came from Greece, and how meaningful it is to be part of this international community. And in terms of where we are as a university in this moment, we have had some grants that have been impacted. Some of those are in court, and we're very much working through those to ensure that while there is obviously a disruption taking place in higher education, we remain as extraordinary an institution as we've always been. And we feel very confident that the steps that are being put in place will allow the university to remain the truly distinctive university that it always has been. And our commitments and free expression, all of those values remain. So I hope that's helpful. And for people that are able to participate in this program, I think you will see it is the same extraordinary university founded on those enduring ideals. Thanks so much for your question, Elizabeth.
Thank
Yes, Deb, let me do the same for you. Go for it. You should be able to unmute. Great, there you go.
Thank you so much. This looks really wonderful. I live in the Chicago area, so it's possible for me to commute or stay on campus. Can you give me a sense of like what the starting and ending times are of the day? Because traffic.
Yes. Tim, do you want to talk to that?
So the morning session is 9:30 and 9:30 to noon, and we'll break an hour for lunch. And like I said earlier, there's some activities during some of those lunch breaks. And the afternoon session, I think is we'll be done by 4 o'clock.
Okay.
That said, there are some dinners and other activities alongside a couple of the days. So just so you're aware of those alongside the class.
Okay. And then the classrooms are, on the quad, I take it?
Yeah, we'll be in Cobb Hall, which is right at 58th and
Sure.
Ellis for the week, and then that evening performance that David referenced is going to be in a room in the Classics building.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. Other questions? Yeah, go for it, Evan.
Hi, Professor Ray. What will be the final paper? I mean, when will it be due, and what is the length, and other details for us?
Yeah, and I'll just clarify as Professor Ray answers this question that there are two types of students in the residential seminars. There are the students who are taking it for credit as part of the Master of Liberal Arts, and those are the individuals that have the paper requirement. We do also have lifelong learners who get to enjoy a class that is very serious and everyone's doing the reading and really approaching it with that rigor, but don't have the paper required at the end. With that context, Professor Ray, do you want to talk about what your assignment will be for those who do want to receive credit and get graded for their class?
Sure, sure. So I want the paper to come from each student's own interest and engagement with the poem, with Homer, and that might look very different for different students. I'm certainly not looking for an academic research paper with a bibliography from the hundreds of thousands of books and articles on Homer. Some students choose to do a creative thesis. One student last year actually wrote a verse added book, new book of the Iliad, which is really astonishing. Um, a paper that engages with your own personal and or professional life in light of Homer is really an excellent choice and very much in keeping of the spirit of the Master of Liberal Arts program. As for the timing, just as with the assignment, let's work together on that, right? If it works for you to give the paper to me by the end of the summer, that's good. But it does sometimes happen that for various reasons, right? People have professional lives and other commitments. So at this point, I haven't set a hard and fast deadline for the paper. And what I would want to do is to work individually with each student on that. That is what has worked that is what worked very well for this seminar last year. And so that's my plan. And that said, if you're a deadline person and you want one, I'm happy to give you a deadline too. I can do that as well.
Other questions? Yes, please, Joan.
Unmute there. Yeah, Professor Ray, I'm wondering if we'll be engaging with other adaptations, text adaptations of Homer. I've read some time ago Alessandro Barrico's An Iliad, for example, and we wonder if we'll be looking at any of those sorts of things.
Well, only tangentially, some of those really wonderful works of fiction and other genres that interact with the Iliad. I'm very interested in, as I mentioned, the Alexander Pope translations, so we will definitely spend some time communing with some of that. And I will also add that if there is a translation or if there's a poem that is of particular interest to a member of the seminar, that would be a wonderful thing for us to spend some time on. Last year we did spend an afternoon looking at some poetic responses to Homer. So we won't be reading novelistic or short story receptions of Homer, because reading the text of the Iliad is enough reading work for a week-long seminar. But let's keep the door open to the possibility of introducing things from that. If someone has a piece of writing, be it a poem, be it a passage from fiction or nonfiction that you find interesting, it would be great to bring that in and to share that as part of our discussion. We have a long time, right? It's only 5 days, but it's 5 long days, and we actually have a lot of time to structure it according to the interests of the participants. I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Other questions? Maybe we got one in the chat here that's just about your teaching style and how you approach the classroom. We've talked a little bit about that already, that this was an unusual session because you were doing most of the talking, and I know in your usual classes you're asking questions and then something back, but do you want to just talk about how you approach teaching?
Well, it's like asking the caterpillar, "How do you walk?" Isn't it? Somebody who's been teaching for a while. That's a little bit hard to answer. I'm kind of inclined to say that what we're doing right now, resembles it. We use this word Socratic, but if you actually read Plato's dialogues, right, it's mostly Socrates saying, "This is true, isn't it?" And they say, "Yes, Socrates." And if this is true, that means the following thing is true, doesn't it? And they say, "Yes, Socrates." So that's that version of Q&A. I'm much more interested in your questions than I am in my questions. I have questions and I like to bring them, but my questions are questions that I want to ask the text, if that makes sense. And I want to join you in asking questions of the text. I think that things like enthusiasm and wonder very much have a place in the study of literature, and I don't think, as some people do, I don't think that those feeling states, things like enthusiasm and wonder, I don't think that those are opposites to critical inquiry, critical examination, right? Critical just means that my faculties of judgment and evaluation are not switched off. But it doesn't mean that I'm holding myself back from a wholehearted participation in the imagined world that a text is recreating. And that's a thing about Homer's text that I haven't mentioned, and maybe that's a thing that's worth saying. Part of the reason that Homer's epics, and especially the Iliad, have been given such pride of place, I think, is this idea that Homer's song is an ocean and Homer's song is a mirror of the whole world, and that Homer covers somehow the realm, the range of human life. So in some ways, we could say that Homeric poems teach us how to live. And sometimes I've said that to people who draw themselves up with indignation and say, "What do you mean? You mean that Homer's teaching us to bash each other's brains out on the Greek and Trojan battlefield?" To which I say no, but it is showing us things like what it is to supplicate someone in power, and what the world looks like when that person in power says no, and what it looks like when they say yes, what it looks like to receive a stranger as a guest instead of turning them away, what it looks like for husband and wife to bid farewell when they both know that the husband is going into battle and will probably never return. I'm thinking of the end of Book 6, the famous farewell of Hector and Andromache. So those are the kinds of things that this poem serves up to us. And a long Greek tradition thinks of this poem as containing everything, in the way that the Indic tradition sometimes describes the Mahabharata and the Ramayana as just containing everything, this ocean of song. And so I'm interested in ways of responding to this poem and interacting to this poem that are open to these, expansive, flowing energies that arise. If you read, for example, Keats's poem on first looking into Chapman's Homer, it's clear that he had some kind of overwhelming, ecstatic trance experience when he first delved into Homer, and then was trying to use his own poetic art to find some way to respond to it, some kind of way to respond to it adequately, that is both cognitive and also affective. So I guess I answered your question in the sense that I just sort of riffed a little bit more on the way that I think about the poem, and the way that I feel about the poem, and the kinds of things that I want us to be willing and daring to share in our experience of the poem.
Beautifully said, David. I will say, I think they're single-handedly killing U Chicago as the place where fun comes to die. So you're ending that tradition that we have with your willingness to accept emotion and all of these other feelings in the classroom.
I mean, let me also say the Iliad is long, okay, and it has a reputation for being boring, and it is long, and there are long stretches where it seems like it's just people killing each other. So there's that aspect of it too.
Other questions? Go for it, Evan.
Just on that last one, are we going to be going through the entire book, or are you going to just, are there certain sections that we're going to focus on over that week?
So it's a little of both. That is to say, I will put the whole Iliad on the syllabus, and I will also put the specific books that, or the specific passages that I want to focus on. So if you're able to, it's great to read the entire Iliad in advance. That's fantastic. You actually also could, you might be really, really tired by the end of the week, but you actually also could read the whole Iliad, reading, say 6 books a night that's like 6 chapters, reading that every night. You'd be finished by Thursday evening. So that's one possibility. But I will, as I say, I will identify specific sort of high point passages that I want us to have looked at and to be able to talk about together. And again, different people come to this class and have different amounts of available time and energy to spend on it. So I think it's important for it to be, for the course to be accessible in both those ways. And that's another reason why there's not anything that we're reading in addition to the Iliad. There's no assigned reading that goes beyond that.
Any other questions? Well, I know we are nearing our time. Maybe I can just offer this. Tim is very available for any questions that come up about logistics. And I know he can also pass on questions to David if you have them about the curriculum. I'll just share that David is incredible, and he teaches in our Master of Liberal Arts and in LSI. And as dean, I hear about a lot of our incredible faculty, but I can genuinely say there is no one I hear about more than David. Students gush after taking his classes, and I think it's because of that intersection of the love and joy and passion and the deep critical thinking. And so it's a treasure for Graham School to have him. And thank you, David, for teaching again. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And we look forward to potentially seeing some of you in our gorgeous Hyde Park this summer. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And thanks again, David.
Thanks, everyone.